Tableau actually comes preloaded with a number of geospatial resources, but they're a little bit hidden because if you don't need them, you don't need them. So they're not necessarily right at the kind of forefront of what Tableau shows you, but they are there if you want to use them. And it, to be honest, it can save us a ton of work in terms of downloading and aggregating and cleaning a bunch of data sources that can kind of be a pain. So let's explore what Tableau gives us hooks into, and then show ourselves how to extend that functionality if Tableau doesn't have exactly what we want. So to get this activated, we just need to drag any geospatial field into our data set. So we'll do location, for instance, as in fact we've done this one. I'm gonna change it. Let's do election by state, just this one here. Doesn't matter which one. The big idea is that we now have a newly activated menu on our ribbon. So one of the downsides of Canvas Studio is that I can't record the ribbon of my desktop here. So it's by ribbon I mean the thing that says File, Data, Worksheet, Dashboard, so on. The one we want is Map. So if we go to Map and Map Layers, we get a new field here, or new kind of menu. We can select a lot of different things. For instance, I could highlight the coastlines. Okay, great. That doesn't seem super interesting. I could highlight terrain. So this shows me things like the Rocky Mountains. I can put on borders for various administrative regions. I can put on metro boundaries, all of these types of things, various cities and things like this. It's not the case that any of these that all of these are going to be useful in a particular visualization, but they can each of them be useful in a particular context. You know, it just kind of depends what you're trying to do. And so it's just important to be able to play around with those things. Another really useful thing is this data layer down here. So data layer is a number of prepackaged data sets that Tableau has downloaded, aggregated, cleaned for you. And this is a big deal because it's kind of a pain. So basically, like that population sheet that we had in our previous data set is one of these fields here. I've got US population. Now, and I can do this by state, I can do this by county, I can do it by census tract. I get to choose the level of detail of the view here. The good news is that you didn't have to download this, you didn't have to edit it, you didn't have to do any of that stuff. It's awesome. You also don't have any control over it. So for instance, when it says population here, I don't actually know what population that is. You know, like when is it the census? Is it the most recent census? Is it I don't have much control over that, but it's done for me. Okay, so that's pretty good. Notice that I have a ton of other stuff here. Breakdown, population by race, occupations, things like this. Very useful. And again, the other nice part about this is that notice that I can have things playing out on top of this visualization, like a scatter plot, or it's a pie chart or something like this. And so in some sense, this is saving us the work of having to make two figures, one for the scatter plot or the pie chart and one for the choropleth, and then doing the dual axis to bring these together. In some sense, it's already done the choropleth and the dual axis for you, and in that way you save a ton of time at the expense of perhaps not being able to do everything that you want to do. So that's meaning you don't necessarily know where these are coming from and things like that. Okay, so how about another one? Let's go to map again and say background maps. So right now we're doing light. This is fine. The other one that we might want to do though is streets. And notice that this is kind of like it's not great, but it's totally serviceable. And again, I hate the panning here. So it's pretty good. This can be particularly useful if you're doing a project related to logistics or supply chain type things. I mean, it really matters where these road networks go and don't go, especially in places that don't have great connectivity, physical connectivity. What else can we do here? We can do, the other one that's very important is if you go up here and go to satellite. This can be really important for all sorts of reasons. You can get an idea of land cover usage, like kind of what's going on there, whether it's densely populated or not. And again, this is one of those things that integrating satellite imagery in is like not my favorite thing to do in terms of like the things that I sometimes have to do in my research, because as it turns out, satellites are complicated. Like they're whizzing around the Earth and taking pictures, And we see one unified picture here, but these are actually like tiles, and the tiles have to get knitted together, and they all use slightly different coatings for things. It's just a nightmare. And so the fact that Tableau at least gives us one built-in option to not have to deal with that is really useful. And again, this is one background image. Now, what do we do if this is not what we want? Well, I'm just going to show you one here. Let me copy paste something over here. So one of the things that I use a lot of my research is water data, hydrologic data. So if we go to map and we say background maps, manage maps, you can actually add map services. So map services follow one of a couple protocols. One of them is called WMS. This is the web mapping service. And it's a particular protocol that tells you how to lay out geospatial data. You have all these data. Are we doing it in latitude, longitude, or are we doing it in something more complicated? So this WMS server is one way to do this. Mapbox is another. You just have to point it to a particular place. So you don't have to do this. We'll do an example in the homework where you'll add one yourself. This is just, if you notice, just a link. It's a pointer to a server that's going to give us some information. And so I hit OK here. And this one is actually just a different map type. This is not kind of any particular. I thought it was going to be hydrologic, and I forgot. I think we're actually doing that one in a separate assignment. But this is just a different mapping service that gives you a slightly different kind of look and feel to the map itself. Notice that there is some lag here. And why would there be lag? Because it's actually contacting the server in order to download these images. There also might be limitations on the actual zoom and resolution that the service provides. Like maybe it's not going to give you down to kind of the individual meter or something like this. It's going to be something much smaller or much more fine grained. Oh, I've gone and ruined it. While it's thinking about what I've asked it to do, let me just review what we've done. So Tableau comes preloaded with things like terrain, municipal boundaries, states, counties, all of this type of stuff. That's great. You can also add layers related to prepackaged data sources like population and occupation and race and things like this. You can also change the background image to things like satellite or streets. And then if those don't work, you can actually add your own mapping services to the mix. All of this is in service of a particular goal that you have in your visualization. It depends what that is. So if you're talking about logistics or supply chain issues, you might want to have satellites with major cities, or maybe not even all major cities, but just major cities that have transportation hubs. If you're doing an ecological example, you might want to have land cover paired with biome or things like this. Now, you can only have one base image active at a time. It will not do overlays of multiple. But we've seen in the past that we can get around this by having dual axis plots where we have a background image that's one thing and then several other things sitting on top. It just takes some kind of bespoke customization. So moving forward, we got two more pieces that we have to deal with. What do we do if we have data quality issues? And you for sure will, unfortunately. And then finally, what do we do if the geocoding that's built into Tableau is not ideal? But we'll cover both of those in a future video.